Hello and welcome to ISC Research's latest higher education webinar. Thank you for joining us today, and it's great to see so many of you here. Today's discussion is focusing on future pathways, guiding students for life after high school. My name is Diane Glass and I am Commercial Director at ISC Research. ISC Research has been established since 1994 and is the leading source worldwide for data and market intelligence on international schools. Our data and market intel is used by a wide variety of stakeholders in the sector, including the international schools themselves and also universities, who are typically using the data to inform international undergraduate recruitment initiatives or market qualifications and training programs for teaching staff at the schools. Of course, much has changed over the past years in terms of the student pathway to higher education and in terms of what life and the world of work might look like after university or college. We aim to use this session to investigate some of those changes and to find out more about how schools and institutions are working together now to best support students in these new times. The session is going to last about 40 minutes in total, and we aim to have 5 to 10 minutes at the end to answer questions. So please do add any questions you might have to the Q&A tab on the platform. And if we don't get around to answering everyone's questions this morning, we will follow up with responses afterwards. The session is being recorded for those who are in different time zones, and a copy of the recording will be sent to everyone who's registered. So I'm absolutely delighted, first of all, to introduce our two panelists today. Jo Marshall is Head of Higher Education at the Alice Smith School in Malaysia. Founding principles of the Alice Smith School are to lead the pursuit of excellence in learning through nurturing, inspiring, and enriching the lives and characters of young people. Albert Diaz is Director of Recruitment and Admissions at ESADA, a global institution structured as a business school, a law school, and an executive education area based in Barcelona, Spain. Welcome to you both, and many thanks for taking the time for being here today. I'd like to start, if I could, first of all, by highlighting the international context of the discussion. Starting with you, if I could, please, Jo. I'm interested to know how many nationalities are represented across the student body at the Alice Smith School in Kuala Lumpur, and what proportion of your students typically choose to study abroad at university?
Yeah, thank you, Diane, and good evening, everyone. Yeah, we have a very diverse student body. We have about 43 nationalities represented across the whole school, which is a lot. And you could maybe break those down into some other sort of categories. So we have about 20% or so that represent the kind of founding countries of the school, which are the kind of UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. We have about 44% that are Malaysians, so although many of those would probably have access to other national passports. Obviously, in Malaysia, you're only allowed to have a single passport. And the rest of the student body is really made up from a very diverse range of countries across Asia, across Europe, and across Africa. So it is a very kind of an international school in the truest sense, not just in the curriculum, but also in the student body as well.
Okay, thank you. And what about studying abroad? What about your students and their aspirations there?
Yeah, well, I'd say they all want to study abroad. So this is probably a bit of sometimes a clash, and they certainly would all like to study abroad. A lot of them, this is the reason why they've come to the school in the first place, or certainly a very strong part of it, is with aspirations to be international with their study and work after they leave us. It's not always possible. So certainly we have the majority of students will apply to universities overseas. Ultimately, most of them will go overseas as well, but we probably have, conveniently for us, we have about 100 students in our final year group. So about 10% of them will probably stay in Malaysia.
That's great. Thanks very much indeed. So coming to you, Albert, I mean, ISC Research and ESADA have been working together for some years now on your international strategy. And I know, that you appreciate the data that we provide in terms of helping you make the decisions regarding your international recruiting strategies. The school opened in 1958, didn't it, with a focus on business education, and it's incredible that within only 35 years of that opening, you've expanded into other subjects, but also really developed the international focus, sometimes in partnership with other institutions, I know. So I'd like to ask you really, how important is internationalization to ESADA's ethos, and what part does it play in the recruitment and the education of your students?
Well, hello, Diane. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here with you today. Well, I always like to recall what a former dean of ESADE told us during the introductory speech the first day I started my studies at ESADE, some years ago already. He said, ESADE does not want to be the best school in the world. ESADE wants to be the best school for the world. And that to me is a clear statement on how important internalization is for ESADE. Our presence in top international rankings for MBAs, MScs, or bachelors already give us certain international exposure and reputation. But for a reputation to be sustainable in time and to meet expectations of those students and families who trust ESADE and choose us for their university studies, we must stick to our two main drivers that are quality and diversity. So I would say that talking about internationalization, ESADE's growth vector is internationalization. So at ESADE's main campus in Barcelona, we have programs that go from PhD to MBA, and there are several MSCs and undergraduate programs. And there's only one program that is taught in Spanish. And we recently have been quite active in terms of launching new programs, almost 2 per year. And all of them are taught in English. So for us, internationalization is crucial to recreate or to create an ecosystem, an environment. We consider that it's the ideal one for our students to grow and to evolve and to perform their best. Currently, all our undergraduate programs have more than 80% of international students. So all our efforts are focused on international recruitment, because that is what students demand. And we like to have obviously also a certain percentage of locals, because we want them to feel at home while they are away from their actual homes. No? So students really, they expect to find a university experience that is challenging, enriching, and of course unforgettable. And so we all know that university years shape their personalities and future paths. No? So students decided will be able to go on summer programs, spend semester exchange programs abroad. They will also do solidarity internships. So it's mandatory for them to even have a placement semester outside Barcelona during their time with us. So all these experiences, the international campus life or the international student body, these international experiences within the program, as I said, not recreate or prepare them for the world they will find after graduation. A professional world, it is fast-paced and diverse, and it requires adaptation, flexibility, open-mindedness, resilience, curiosity, all these traits. And our focus is on creating the best possible scenario for them to reach their maximum potential, and that as well is obviously oblige us to add new international faculty members every year to adapt also our programs to their needs, and also what the company demands, because recruiting is in terms of professional opportunities is also international. So for us to make this, I like to call it the virtuous circle, to make it sustainable and to be up to the continuous evolution. The starting point to make it sustainable has to be internationalization.
Great, thanks very much. And I was interested to hear you say, how important it is to recruit international teaching staff as well, which isn't necessarily something that all universities pay attention to, I think. So thanks very much for that. Joe, if I could come back to you, the Alice Smith School's Future Pathways initiative, which aims to expand both higher education and career advice out of sixth form, so down to primary school and beyond university graduation. That initiative has been recognised, hasn't it, as good practice by the international schools community, and indeed was shortlisted at this year's International School Awards hosted by ISC Research. What are the key skills that your school encourages students to develop to find out who they want to become? And in parallel with this, how do you help highly aspirational parents understand that their child's choice of future pathways matters?
Yeah, thank you. Albert highlighted some of them, actually, some of the core ones. We did that kind of with things like resilience, persuasion, it's a very, very strong one. I mean, organisations like the World Economic Forum are very good at this, constantly kind of developing these lists of key skills that are coming down from employers, from people. So it's clear that these things are incredibly as important as the technical skills you would learn. We obviously do focus on, hard technical skills as well, but these so-called soft skills are just so important. And to be honest with you, the one that is kind of the most key in a way is self-awareness, because that's the one that is the access to everything else. If you can understand what you're interested in, what you enjoy doing, where you can maximize your potential, that's how you can lock into everything else. So we have a bit of a saying that it's not that it's not what you want to be, it's who you want to become. So we remember focusing on the person and looking at that. As you don't really need me to tell you the unbelievable amount of data and coverage there's been about these various industrial revolutions, and where we are now, the fifth, I think, as we sort of come into that one now. So what this means is that the world of work is changing at this unbelievable pace. So traditional roles, lawyers, doctors, that's all, they're still called that, but they're incredibly different. And as we know, there are these myriad roles, jobs, positions that are being created all the time, that are yet to be created, etc. The only way you can engage with that really in any way that's going to allow you is to be flexible. It's another one of these kind of key skills, but more importantly, to really understand what it is you want, what kind of environment you want to work in, what kind of work you want to do, what kind of output you want. If you understand those things, then as the work changes around you, you can sort of tailor accordingly. If you're unsure about that and you've chased simply being an engineer, for example, you're going to find as that role isn't what you want when you get there and it changes, you're unable to adapt. So really that the central thing for us is developing that level of self-awareness. I think you asked me about parents and then about the competitive nature, and I will hold my hands up and say, much as we've done some brilliant work with parents in order to kind of get them on board with this, understanding it, in a way we can be part of the problem as well. There's no doubt about it. If we get a student into a top university, which we do, into a Yale, into an Oxford, we certainly make a big deal of it, and we certainly advertise it and go that. The truth is, and there was an excellent article in The Guardian actually this week about this, about the fact that students who get a 2-1 from a mid-ranking university do much better, as it happens in the workplace, than students to get a 2-2 from a higher ranking or Russell Group university. It's quite a sort of simple bit of thing, and I'm sure you can see that replicated in other areas as well. We don't believe that kind of, that elitist way of doing it is probably the best way. It is more this idea of self-awareness, going onto the course that's right for them, going into the workplace that's right to them, that is right. But obviously at the same time, we know that getting a student into Oxford or Yale brings students into the organisation as well. So we've done some great convincing with parents, showing them the data, showing them really, particularly using the kind of thing, tools, online to show the students' interest, and we've been very good at doing that. But there's definitely still that commercial pressure coming in both directions. I know that all of us have.
Yeah, sure, I can understand that. Albert, you work very closely with international school university counsellors, and I know that you meet with them regularly. What have you learnt from the counsellors that's informed your own admissions practices, do you think? And how close are those skills that Joe has outlined to those that you're looking for in your undergraduate applicants?
Well, I'm glad to see that we are very aligned with Joe. If you don't mind, I'm going to start answering to your second question related to the to the skills, because Joe already mentioned some of them, some of the skills. One of our two top recruiters defined our graduates as and tried to something like young individuals committed to society and responsible teammates that are able to operate successfully at a professional level. So it talks about individuals, it talks about teammates, so a little bit all together. So basically what we try to look for, or we look for in a student, and that we strive to enhance and polish once they are with us, is there are several skills. If I had to group them, for example, I would say that analytical skills, problem solving, creativity, and innovation, those ones, for them to be able to think outside the box and provide solutions. In the end, that's what they're going to be asked to do, to solve problems professionally. Also, it's important for us the adaptability or flexibility. They will have to continuously adapt to new scenarios or new environments, and maybe they have to be ready for the next new paradigm. So they have to be ready and adaptive. Also, well, just said, I mentioned before, resilience and this growth mindset that now is in vogue. I mean, these two will really help them face tough situations or problems. For example, ESADE is demanding, but life is demanding, and it's our responsibility to prepare them for what they will have to face in the future. But besides those, we also believe that they have to be curious and collaboration, or I would say, or collaborative. These two skills are also important because for us, we believe these are important, but for them even more, because we at ESADE, we are strong believers that university time is a mix of feelings and a constant evolution. And Joe mentioned before, self-awareness and their choices are related to courses, choices related to relationships, to connections, and all these decisions that they will do while they are at university. All these situations, this will add to their personal growth in many ways. So besides what they learn in class, we expect them to, when we recruit a student, we expect them to bring a certain set of skills, but we will help them polish those and also add a few more that we consider that will be very helpful for their future path, whichever path they end up choosing. So in the end, professional world has proved that it's not only about what you know, it's about what you can do with that knowledge, and the tools and soft skills that you are kind of equipped with. So in terms of skills, those would be the ones that I will highlight.
Great, thanks very much.
You also asked me about counselors. Can you go back to the question, please?
Yeah, of course. Yes. What I was saying is that I know you're obviously working closely with university counsellors at the international schools, and are there specifics, do you think, that you've learned from those counsellors that have perhaps informed your admissions practices? That's what I was asking.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, indeed, we with counselors, we hold regular meetings with them to solve their doubts and our doubts. If we need any info, we share news about programs or what's going on in their campus. We like to inform them about the process of their current students in our process or their former students at ESADE. So we like to keep the connections, right? because we believe it's very positive for both sides, no? And even once a year we invite them to come to visit us in Barcelona. So when the sun is shining, it's always a good good time to visit Barcelona. But now let's focus. Let's go back to our point. What we really value the most of our relationship with counselors is the importance of timely and useful information, and besides the close contact. In times where I believe that everything can be found online, and students can inform themselves, it's more and more relevant to understand that sometimes less is more, and providing the right info at the right time and understanding the different cycles within a calendar year proved to be a success for us, because we can interact with schools and school counselors several times during an admissions process, or let's say our year that goes from September until end of June, more or less. So interacting during 1 year for different reasons, but more than one time, we believe it's very positive. And also we understand that school counselors have to deal with hundreds of universities, and every university certainly has XYZ amount of programs. So overfloading them with info is not the right idea. So I believe that more relevant to have a point. It's very relevant to have maybe a point of context to go whenever they need to, and yeah, establishing that relationship, that it's regular, and having a point of contact. That would be, I would say, on the professional side. And if I could mention just another issue, but more from the personal side, I would say that on the personal side, we are amazed to see how much they care for their students and how well they know their personal situations, how much they try to provide the right advice to each one of their pupils. And if they do so, and they care so much, after they trust us, we have to follow up with their excellent work and take very good care of their students. So I believe that it's a win-win, having a good relationship, and then learning that we have to take really good care of their pupils to follow their learning and growth progress.
Sure. Yeah. So it sounds as if it's all about good relationships, trusting relationships. Joe, I'm going to ask you now, if I could, about the way that you collaborate with higher education institutions, and then we're going to go on and we're going to talk about the student voice. But to begin with, tell us a bit about your collaboration and how you manage to support your students' aspirations through those relationships that you have with universities.
Yeah, they're obviously very important in terms of providing certain information, certain other kind of services and understanding, and perhaps really, and also kind of aspirational goal, really. You know, I think that's part of it, is creating that this is a world and atmosphere that you want to kind of go into. I think relationship has obviously changed over the past couple of years. You know, we've gone through a massive amount of upheaval, and I think a lot of people on this call today would probably say that their job has changed significantly over the last couple of years. Again, there will be a lot of people that are now working remotely, and yet traveling less and looking at doing it. I've been speaking to a lot of universities this week, perhaps some of them are on the call right now, and certainly, so for example, spoke to Edinburgh this week. You know, they've had a massive change in the way that they view this kind of international outreach. They've got a lot of green targets that they want to hit. They've got a lot of other kind of, their numbers have gone up significantly, so they're not needing to recruit in quite the same way. So their relationship with me and with what they want to do has changed slightly over this time period. And they are now looking at these kind of far more kind of focused, dedicated events and recruitment activities, rather than the kind of more familiar, continual kind of drop-ins that we might have seen in the past. So this relationship has changed significantly from our point. And I think this does go a bit with the student numbers, and this is something we know that I discussed with Edinburgh and a few others this week. it is already, we have great relationships with them. You know, they're always, obviously, you're talking about some fantastic people in terms of getting onto them and talking to them and sorting out problems, issues with applicants particularly. And perhaps for a school like us, where we are quite well resourced and we do know a lot about the universities already, it is almost the applicant care, that side of it, which is perhaps ultimately more important. I guess we know where Edinburgh is, we know what they do, we know what they like. We can sort of show that, it's all on the website, but that it's that, you know, let's use the word customer care really that happens after that, that is so important and really does make all of the difference. And I do think that that's where this relationship can continue. I know that, you know, I've worked at a university as well, so, and I've worked in the admissions office, and I know there is sometimes a bit of tension between admissions tutors, academics, admissions staff, and international recruitment and marketing in general. So, you know, when we're looking at getting the most clear information from the university, we know that it's not always completely transparent. You know, so we've had a lot of students this year rejected on they just weren't as good as other applicants. And we'd probably say we might be heading to a point with that care where we probably do need more clarity than that. We probably would need to have a truer answer or a truer reflection as to exactly why this has happened. I know that's not easy, and I know there are reasons for that. So you know, we do have an excellent working relationship with them already. I think with the international departments, that's always been strong. I think that going forward, it's with the entire institution. And we're already getting that because we're already starting to access so many other parts of the university through the online structuring. You know, academics that wouldn't normally have come to Malaysia, other, you know, finance experts that wouldn't normally come out. So we're starting to see that happen, and I think I would like to see that increase, that relationship deeper really into the university itself.
It's great to hear that. I know that you feel very positive about those changes that have really had to happen over the past 2 years. So let's hope, as you say, that they continue and that we can build upon them. Certainly, I speak to a lot of universities on a sort of weekly basis, and lots of them are saying that they're not going to go back to the old days of travel. So yeah, very positive. So coming on to the next question for you, please, Joe. The details of the Future Pathways initiative that we've mentioned was submitted as part of your International School Award application included the following statement. It said, "It's clear from our own alumni that job satisfaction does not come from attending elite universities, but from the students' understanding of their own skills, interests, and passion." How much influence, I'd like to ask you, has the student voice on your pathway initiative and counselling practices? How does it inform your collaboration with higher education institutions? How influenced are you by the student voice?
I would say, you know, there's a couple of different ways I can answer this. I'll try and be as concise as I can. I think certainly in fact, the more traditional way you would think of that, certainly if I spoke to my kind of, you know, senior leadership team here, if I spoke about student voice, it would be kind of canvassing their opinion, seeing what they thought of what we were doing and implementing any of those changes we thought necessary. And we do that. And there's good and bad elements to that approach, absolutely. I think when I think of student voice, I think really it is that kind of more empowerment side of things. And it is about allowing them really through some of the things we've already discussed, the self-awareness side of things, to really speak about what they really truly want, and what they want to do, and what they want to get out of it. You know, that's to do with other pressures, parental pressures, peer pressures, media, anything else that there might be, but really getting them to engage and understand it, and move them away from just kind of accepting really whatever's kind of put in front of them, which I think was the case for quite a long period of time. There's plenty of study, I suppose, kind of more localized study here, because this does depend on, this is quite regional. So there is a lot of information to say that here in Asia, you know, the parental voice is incredibly strong. The family voice is so much stronger. Back in Europe, the voice of the peer, the voice of the media is far stronger. So that, and when we touched on it already about talking and dealing with parents, that often is it. And often the voice I hear when I'm first counselling is often the parents' voice, kind of coming through them. in many ways. And so we kind of work to make sure it is their own. You're never going to resolve every single conflict or difference of opinion. It's always going to be compromise, and that's fine. We're talking about a massive investment of time and money, and we understand that massive compromises need to be made often. But as long as the student is aware and is able to articulate that to me, to other teachers, and clearly to their parents and their peers as well, then that's really important to us. So when I think of student voice and utilizing it, it's giving them that sense of self-awareness and ability to speak about themselves eloquently.
That's great. Thanks very much, Albert. What about you? I mean, how influential is the student voice to your admissions strategy?
Well, as we all know, when talking about recruiting undergraduate level students, we always, as a university, we feel that we are inside a triangle, and that triangle has to do with schools, with parents, and with students. So it's not just that there's one target that we must approach, but it's true that the student voice, as in any other sector or activity, must be taken into consideration. And knowing how I'm going to use the word target, okay? How your target feels, how they think, what are the needs, how they inform themselves, so who they listen to. So the more we know and the closer we are to them, the more that we can tailor our recruitment and admission strategy, and the more we can tailor their applicant experience. So for example, in our case, we have innovated in the selection process. We have included an interview where we can assess different kind of soft skills that I even mentioned some before, but that these soft skills sometimes are not easy to portray on paper or on video. So we do live interviews for us to also listen to what they have to tell us. Another example is allowing them to take the online admissions test. It used to be only in-house, and it made no sense for someone who really wanted to try the chances to have to travel thousands of kilometers and do it in Barcelona. So we listened to their request, and we worked really hard to have an online version of our admissions test. At the center, we try to provide regular spaces where they can interact with us to solve their doubts. No, it's usually online, but they have those spaces. And we have even adapted our scholarships and financial aid packages to their current needs, because current needs are not what it used to be. Mm-hmm. So all these adaptations refer to attending their new needs. So I would say that listening to them is for us a regular activity and as a candidate. But when they become students, we have an activity that we call town halls with class representatives, and those are very useful for us to a very useful way to learn about their thoughts and expectations, and also to listen to them and to be able to implement changes or modify, for example, program content. Modify, for example, the specialization tracks or the minors, or include skill programs or activities related. So I would say that what is even more relevant is listening to them while they are students, because it's when they need us the most, and they need our support. We give them academic mentoring. We have seen how necessary was the increase of more tutoring hours, or even providing or having the figure or the designated department or office to provide them some room and time for professional advice on more personal issues. So individual counseling for personal matters. So let's not forget that these past 2 years have been very difficult, and maybe students have had to continuously adapt to new situations, the online learning from home, then having less contact hours with professors and with friends and classmates. So maybe their motivations and needs also shifted towards new scopes, So being there by them, I would say for them, I believe is a must.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was going to talk for a little while just on the challenges and the opportunities that have been brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. And Joe, I was going to ask you to begin with how the collaboration between higher education institutions and international schools has evolved over the past 2 years. What are your thoughts on that? You talked a little bit about it earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I've already sort of covered quite a lot of that, but
Yeah.
I think it's been very positive in the main. I do think perhaps to use an alternative example, perhaps might for people tuning in might give them an example. Obviously, I always deal with work experience as well, and work experience as an area has gone through a very similar revolution. And again, if you talk to people that work in that industry, this was a very similar thing. This was something that was kind of ripe for a massive change. So there's a kind of standardized way of doing work experience in the UK, for example, and there's similar things globally, but certainly in the UK, it was end of year 11, everyone does a week somewhere, right, we've done that now, let's move on. And what was happening from that was not great. So it was, some people did all right of it, some people really hated it, a lot of people just dodged it entirely. And even at a school like ours, where we were implementing it, there was sometimes similar it was a mixed bag of outcomes ultimately in terms of what we did. And obviously we were getting quite high-end placements and doing some quite amazing things with our parents, etc. So, the invent of these kind of online work experience things means that they're universalized, means everyone can access them. They can access multiple times in lots of different things. They can do it at their own weight and their own speed and everything. You can still access, and we still have, moved to physical work experience, but this thing needed to take place anyway. And COVID has just speeded that process up, because obviously institutions were forced to do online provision. And hopefully a lot have realized, just, to be honest with you, certainly as a bedrock for a school's policy on work experience, it's really important this happened. Very similar thing with this university relationship. I think it was a lot of the way, the kind of output, the way of working, it was developed a long time ago, and it had been something that was developed, kind of going in as a genuine outreach into the kind of far corners of the earth. But as we know, the world isn't like that anymore. The world is incredibly highly connected, and people you can go anywhere in the world and they're going to be very clued up. I realize, as always, when I speak, I have to always have the caveat that yes, we are quite an old school, quite a well-funded school, and that a lot of the people watching this will go out to some more stuff where much more information and support is needed. And I totally understand that. But most of the evidence coming back at the moment is that they are accessing this information through online means. So I know a lot of American universities have spoken to me about the fact that now the diversity of their cohorts has gone up massively over the past 2 years. So the access they now have. So this is perhaps for a more traditional market, certainly the mega two international markets of China and India. It's probably a bit of a hit for them in a way, because they are now able to take students from far more diverse parts of the world. And again, from my conversations with UK institutions this week, that is seemingly happening in the UK as well. They're able to pick up from a far more diverse range of countries, of parts of countries. I guess we're talking about a big country like China, and probably types of student as well. Picking up more students perhaps where they're the first person in their family to go to university, etc., and maybe other demographic concerns like that. So I think this online move and the way it's gone has been incredibly positive overall globally. And the next big challenge is this kind of hybridized thing. And as we said earlier, what I've heard so far from university I spoke to have been so positive. I think they're keeping the best of both worlds and moving forward. That's mostly what I'm seeing, and that's fantastic.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I mean, there have been the development of quite a few online platforms now, haven't they? Connecting students perhaps with university alumni or more advanced technology around credentials and admissions processes. So, Albert, what do you see as the priority development that's going to be most influential to support student pathways in the short term?
well, as Joe said it before, we also had to maybe advance on our plans of developing new projects related to providing more online contacts or better platforms, because this fast-paced world obliges us to do it. No? But what we would say is that students nowadays are not comparable in a sense to those of before. They have gone through a lot due to the changes in society. Maybe I could use here this concept, the VUCA concept, no, the VUCA concept. But yes, I mean, students are a clear example of being more volatile in their interest, somehow unpredictable. Some are showing a different set of values that really move them. You hear them talk about sustainability, about social impact, about common good, about purpose. So they really expect to take something out of everything they do. So they want to use their precious time and make it meaningful. No? So I would say that the most influential changes or developments that we must do to support them is being able or create the processes to quickly adapt to meet their demands, to meet their expectations, to provide them with plenty of opportunities and choices, and also to speak their language, and also identify interlocutors that speak their same language. Yeah. Sometimes there's a gap, so we need to fill that gap. So by doing so we provide them opportunities. We need to be always there to help and support. So we need to be by them. This maybe is linked to what we said before about listening to them, but providing them opportunities, but also support, to give them some responsibility to them to make choices. And also bring on board all of the different stakeholders involved in this learning process. And I would say professors, staff, making that, embracing the diversity. Also, companies that recruit on campus, we have a strong link with companies, and these companies must understand that that for these graduates in 3, 4, 5 years time, it might not be all about good salaries, but maybe more about meaningful goals. Yeah. And that have a true impact. No? So all in all, if an individual is proud of where he is and about what she does, then it's a time when they will blossom. They feel comfortable, they feel supported, and they will blossom. So the best way we can support them is making them responsible for their decisions, and at the same time allowing them to have those spaces to grow, to experience. And I think I already said, but to be right and to be wrong, it's university. Yeah. It's the place to learn from their decisions.
That's great. Thanks very much, Albert. Well, that 40 minutes has absolutely zipped by. We have got one question from Tasha Arnold, who's asking about what types of transition support or training are the schools providing to students? And what I think I'm going to do there for Tasha is send to you information actually on all of the shortlisted initiatives for the International School Awards as far as future pathways, including that from the Alice Smith School, because I think that will give you a really good idea around that. Tasha, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Thank you all very much indeed for tuning in, and I do hope you found the discussion interesting and insightful, and a huge thank you to our panelists, Joe Marshall and Albert Diaz, for such a great conversation. Thank you. If you'd like a copy of ISC Research's latest research results into student pathways from international school to university, the report is free to download from the ISC Research website. If you go to iscresearch.com/intelligence. If you're from a university, college or pathway provider and you're interested in working more closely with ISC Research's data in order to strengthen your relationship with international schools, then please get in touch with me and we can organise a call to show you what ISC can offer. So thank you all very much indeed, and goodbye.